So now ultimately I need to turn my attention to the drawer. And the way I build drawers is I want to focus on fitting the drawer front. And I'll make the sides just the tiniest bit narrower than the drawer front. So ultimately what I'm working on fitting here is just the front in this little tiny space. Now with a slightly thinner drawer side, yeah, you will get a little bit of rocking. It won't be that perfect piston fit. But frankly, anytime I've built a drawer like that, it's gotten stuck due to humidity changes. There's a lot of humidity here in the Mid-Atlantic, and it's really hard to unstick the entire length of your drawer. But say if just this front 3/4 to 7/8 swells a little bit and then gets stuck, it's a lot easier to free that than it would be the entire drawer. So I always will make my drawer sides about 1/8 of an inch narrower than the front itself. And it makes it really easy when it comes to fitting the drawer during construction because all you're focused on is just this little front spot. So I went ahead and I cross-cut this piece to close. I've got a 3" by 12" opening here. And I'm a little bit wide and I'm a little bit long, but maybe a 1/16 of an inch too long and probably about 1/8 of an inch too wide. It's not something that I'm gonna tackle with a saw because it's really hard to take just that small amount off. Taking 1/8 of an inch off along the length will be best served using a scrub plane and then over to the shooting board to remove the width in order to get it to a perfect fit. Little by little, trial and error to get that perfect fit. So the first thing to do is get the width of the drawer right. So over to the shooting board, take a little bit off to get that perfect fit. Now I want to remove about 1/8 of an inch of wood, so I take a scrub plane and hog off a large majority of it. And then switching over to my jack plane, go ahead and smooth out and flatten and true that surface. And that's really all that it takes to get that perfectly fitting drawer. All right, now it's time for the final fit. And it should be quite snug along the length, but I want a little bit of a gap along the width. And you can see I've got maybe a 1/16 of an inch gap along the top here. And that's the way I want to keep it right now. When I installed my drawer runners, I made them about a 32nd of an inch proud of this front rail. So when the drawer goes in, the whole box will be raised up, providing a tiny gap on the bottom and a tiny gap on the top. And with a 32nd of an inch lift here and a 1/16 of an inch gap up top, it should equal out to a 32nd and a 32nd. Certainly you can, tweak this later with a hand plane once you've got the drawer box all put together. So if you watched my series on the contemporary chest of drawers, a lot of this will be review, but here we go. I like to gang up my drawer sides when I build drawers, and I cut tails first for that reason, so I can go ahead and cut all the tails at one time. And this is just as it always is, careful layout and staying to the right side of that line. Now I set up my pin board in the vise level with that miter plane and come in with a marking knife and scribe in all of those pin points there. Pretty simple. And then same position, come back with a dovetail saw, and this is where you really got to pay attention to be very, very close to your lines. I want to try to get a fit right off the saw, so I stay pretty close to my lines here. Now it's that little trick that Chuck Bender taught me where I come in with the chisel and relieve just a little bit right up against the marking gauge line to provide kind of a wall that I can reference my chisel against right here and start that cut down. Now with a soft wood, you may have to start a little bit away from that line so that you don't push back into it because the wood, this is cypress. It's very, very soft. A couple more whacks and it frees that out. Pop out those pins and I'll come in and just kind of clear the schmutz out of the corner, if you will. And then once that's done, we whack it into place. A couple of good taps and it seats nicely. This shot, you may look like you're seeing some gaps there. That's actually the darkness of that cypress there. It's a really, really good close fit and I'm pretty happy with that. So let's turn our attention to the half blinds. I use my chisel to align them and get them perfectly, in line with one another. And, just get it so that they just butt up against that scribe line. And then using a little bit of pressure with my right hand, mark it out with the marking gauge, and then attack it with a saw. I will saw past my inside baselines. Again, you saw me talk about that on the Contemporary Chest of Drawers podcast. Same thing here. I'm not too worried about crossing those baselines. I just don't want to cross the baselines on the side. Same technique. I relieved a little bit to reference my chisel, and now I'll go ahead and pop it out, coming down from the top and then in from the side to relieve that waste. And this is just keep at it until you get all the way down to the bottom. Now it's time to glue the whole thing together. And the drawer came together really well. It is a self-squaring joint, so you don't want to be anal about it, but you do need to pay attention to make sure it glues up nicely. Now with a block plane, I'll go ahead and clear the glue out and flush up the joints. Now, can you see where I went wrong here? I laid out my pins nicely, but I forgot about that drawer gap, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to fix that. After I chamfer that back edge, I can take complete strokes all the way across to get a really nice, smooth finish on the sides of the drawers. Now I got to fix that gap that I left from the drawer bottom groove. Stick a little plug in there, saw it off flush, and take a block plane, clean the whole thing up, and once I've cleaned it up, you can't even tell it was there. And now that I've gone ahead and plugged that little oops by running the groove all the way through, really it was just a matter of smoothing it flush. Since I've already fit the front of the drawer, I know that if I flush the sides up with the drawer sides, I'll get a good fit all the way down. Also make sure as you're gluing up the drawer that you keep it square. Dovetails are self-squaring joints, but sometimes it can move a little bit out of whack, and you do have a little tweaking to do to get it to fit right. With the sides of the drawers being just the tiniest bit underneath the drawer front, I don't have to worry about getting a good fit or it jamming. I've got a good maybe 1/8 of an inch, maybe 3/32 of movement that I can get without the drawer getting stuck in there. The other thing I did, and the purists out there, you've seen me stay very, very pure in construction so far. Purists are going to hate me now because for my drawer bottom, I just didn't have the wide stock on hand, and frankly I got lazy. I didn't feel like gluing up a piece, so I had a little piece of ply that I'm putting in the bottom. So sorry to the purists, I am using plywood bottom. I'm not really concerned about it, but what I'm going to do instead of putting depth stops in is I've left the back of the drawer proud, and this was tweaked just right so that I get a perfect depth stop. And I cut it pretty close, and then using a block plane trimmed it to get the perfect reveal. And now pops right in like that. Got a really good fit all the way around. Nice smooth action in the drawer. I do get obviously a little bit of tilt down. I don't have that perfectly smooth piston fit, but frankly I like it this way. I can get into the drawer a little bit more. Nice and smooth movement all the way out throughout. Now what I want to do now is scratch a faux cock bead molding on here that is going to serve to highlight the beaded edges as well. So let's go back over to the bench and do that. One quick thing, you can see obviously I've got the top placed on here. It's not attached or anything. I cut a reverse OG molding into the top, and I really wanted to show how I did that, but it was kind of in depth. So I think I'm going to save that for its own episode when it comes to sticking moldings. But just know using one hollow, one round, and a rabbiting plane, I was able to cut steps in here and then shape the molding all the way around. It's a close approximation to the piece I saw at the Baltimore Museum of Art. There's a cove at the top and then a bead and then a slight round over on the bottom. And I think it makes a really nice look. So we'll save that for the future. Hope you weren't holding your breath for that. Anyway, let's get over to the bench and make this cock bead. So this is really the same as when we cut the bead on the corners in the last episode, but here I'm going cross grain, so I'll use a marking gauge to sever the fibers so I don't get a whole bunch of tear out. And then using the same beading tool I used before in the same setting, I'll go ahead and scratch that out. Now the delicate part here is making sure you get those beads to meet in the corners so you get that kind of faux miter effect. Don't push too hard or pull too hard or you'll shoot right past that and you'll end up ruining that quarter. So be careful. So at long last, here it is. This is, it's been a lot of fun to build. I went ahead and added the hardware, and you can see the cock bead molding all the way around the edge. I toyed with the hardware a little bit. I had a couple of Queen Anne style brass plates, and the size just didn't work. Most of the Queen Anne hardware that I had and that I had seen was quite a bit larger than just this little 3-inch drawer. So I found this smaller piece that worked really well, and it's really more of a Chippendale style. The piercings here, much more in line with the Chippendale style, but does anybody really care? I think it looks really pretty. I do like the bright brass finish, and overall I'm really happy with how this came out. So obviously all that's left to do is to apply the finish. I am going to stick with the traditional recipe for finish. I'm going to do a shellac finish on this. I've got a little bit of planing to do here and there. I've still got some layout marks and things on here. So I'll hit it with a smoothing plane and clean all that up, get it ready for finish. I will step away, even though I'm using a traditional finish. I'm going to apply it non-traditionally because I just acquired one of those small Erlex spray guns, and I'm really anxious to try it out. So that will be an entirely different episode where I take the new Erlex through its paces and apply the finish to this. I have another walnut side table here in the shop. It's actually sitting off camera over there that I want to finish up, and I'll apply the finish to both of them at the same time. So stay tuned for a future episode for that, but in the meantime, this is the Queen Anne shaker table. It's been a lot of fun to build. It's been a great exercise in building entirely by hand, obviously with the exception of the lathe turned legs. Everything else was done entirely by hand. No electrons were harmed during the building of this table. So thanks for watching.